What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 34 of Unfiltered. I'm your host, ChanManV, and welcome to a special episode, because this episode was not supposed to happen. I was not planning to do this show, because I was just going to take at least this week and the next week off before doing some more shows in the New Year's, but there's such a high demand on good old Reddit that I felt like it was probably good to do one more show in 2013, kind of continue our recap that we were doing with Jeff last week, but have a couple other guys that might have quite different opinions on a lot of things here with Richard and Thorin. But join me as always, Miss Destiny over here, co-hosting. What's up, Steven?
What's up, buddy? Well, yo, why are we doing the episode today and not tomorrow? I just realized that.
It's Christmas Eve, or it's New Year's Eve, so a lot of people were complaining it would be Christmas Eve. Actually, or New Year's Eve, so I wasn't planning on doing it anyways. But everybody seems to want to do it today, so I figured we'd do it. We were originally going to do it later, but these guys are over across the sea, and I didn't want to have them stay up like super early in the morning and that sort of thing. So doing the regular time. Well, what's up, Richard, Thorin? How you guys doing?
Not too bad. Love the haircut, Destiny. You obviously joined the Nazis when you were in prison to survive, so it's a good look for you. It looks really cool. No, it's good. It's good to be here. I'm looking forward to the show. It's a bit of a bait, though. I've got to say.
Why is it a bait?
Here's why it's a bait, right? The fucking esports community once again have fucking excelled. They get that state of the game, which was all lame-ass bullshit, right? So they say, oh, we want to get a bunch of controversial people on. Let's get them drunk, because we so much love and respect opinions. And they're just waiting for us to say something. Like, I've already used the word Nazi, so I'm probably fired in the morning. Like, I haven't got a job going into 2014. That's what they really want. That's what they really want. This is drama bait. So I reckon we should.
What do you mean, man? I wanted to make bait. I wanted to make a last show with just, people who have, very insightful, and the community, circle jerks around them and all that kind of thing. So that's why I had you guys come on here.
Well, all I know, no good can come of this show, Chan, man. I'm going to say that right from the start. Like, no good can come of this.
Whatever.
No, this is basically like dousing for like the end of our careers. We're trying to figure out what the hot button word we have to say that invalidates everything we've done in our whole careers and can be repeated a million times over on Reddit by people who apparently hate our work anyway, but religiously have to read it.
Oh, man.
Those sorts of schizophrenic fans, aka the StarCraft community.
Oh, come on. Please.
No. Again, I won't have
StarCraft. You just tell me about other communities, and then you go and...
They're like my only friends, and I don't even understand the game. I need the StarCraft community. Like, don't rip on them.
Okay. Let's pull it back and just our StarCraft.
Yeah. So Steven, what you think of the new haircut? You hating it? You regretting having to do that after
I like it. I actually think it's nice. I'm happy that my head doesn't have any awkward shapes, right?
I know, it's pretty sexy looking head, man.
Yeah, it's all a nice shape.
Nice skull. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could have got it. I wanted it to be shiny completely, like straight razored, but I went to 3 different barbers and none of them said they could do it. I tried to do the Heisenberg thing, I shaved everything off except for this front part. I had my glasses on earlier. I'll throw them on for the show.
Oh shit! Look at
this.
It
all intimidating and whatnot.
Look at that!
I'm the one who knocks,
I'm the one who knocks. Good stuff. All right, well, we're gonna split up the show. I'm gonna try not to have a real formal structure to the show, because I wanted to have a really relaxed feel for the last show, have it raw as possible. No time limit today, guys. We're just going to talk until we're done, where we can't breathe anymore and that sort of thing. Maybe until Richard's fallen over from drinking too many beers, that sort of thing.
It won't take long. I've been drunk off my ass every day for a week.
Shit.
I already had a residual hangover when I came on air.
Oh, great.
I mean, with the way most of your articles read, I kind of figured that being intoxicated was a prerequisite to writing.
Come on, white power. Don't be like that.
Oh, boy. No, but we will have at least some direction. So we'll start with the good, the bad, the ugly, and then we'll end with some what's next, that type of thing. And then we'll do our normal Q&A, going through some of the questions you guys have. And then round out the show. Who knows how much later than right now. But let's talk about the good. And I know you guys, talking offline, don't want to talk about the good for very long. I mean, we spent a lot of time on a lot of the good things last week, particularly in StarCraft 2. But I do want to get you guys' opinion on some of the things, at least, in regards to each of the games. And we'll just kind of start off with StarCraft 2 first, since, again, we hashed a lot of things. I don't want to be too redundant with it. So let's talk about League of Legends. Right, League of Legends is kind of the esport game that's leading the way right now for the whole industry, I guess you could say. What do you guys think? It's after 2013. I mean, I know, Duncan, last time you were on, we talked about just the championship and we kind of critiqued it, talked about every little thing. But looking back at the whole year now, was it a huge success for esports or League of Legends? What do you think, Duncan?
I actually really don't like League of Legends, the way the competitive scene is designed. Like, I think leagues are boring as fuck. Like, the way they design the show in League of Legends now is that every game in the LCS has to be on stream. And so what essentially they do, they even themselves, I can tell, know that some of the teams are shit and that some of the matchups are shit, because they purposely design the schedule of how it is, so they never put all the good games first, so then you just fucking shut it off when it's like some trash like MYM playing SK or something. They always will space it out. So at the Worlds, right, for example, they had these really bad teams like Mineski and Good Game Europe and all, Gaming Gear Europe. And so what they would purposely do was like put like the 5-game schedule, and they'd always have like one of those shit ones as like the second or the third one, so you'd have to stay for the one you wanted afterwards. And so it's essentially like trying to force you to watch shitty programming to get to the stuff you want to watch, which is surely what we tried to get away from with television anyway, where you don't want to do that. You want to choose what you want to watch, you know. And so in general, I actually think this year, it fucking sucked, dude. Like, I liked last year where you had all those tournaments, like every month you had a big tournament, and you had one in NA, and you had one in Korea, and you had one in this part. Because now you've got this retarded scenario where only the 3 teams qualify from each region to play in these big international tournaments. And so you get these stupid scenarios where you can have 2 people who are the best in the world at their position, and they've never played each other in a competitive match. Like, how can that exist in esports? In other esports games, people have played 10 times, you know. These people have never played once.
Yeah, Steven, what do you think of that? Like, I haven't gotten your opinion just on LCS, just as a whole, 2013.
Man, I mean, how do I follow that?
Well, I mean, did you think it sucked?
Did
you think it sucked?
We're in the goods. Are we in the goods?
I know, we're in the freaking good, man. What's going on here?
So, like, I think that what Thorin said are possible problems. But I mean, that's kind of like the 9 out of 10 chick won't fuck because her elbows are too skinny. I think that most reasonable people would agree that League of Legends has undeniably grown a lot this past year. Yeah. Whether or not it's been good for esports as a whole, I could see legitimate arguments on both sides. But I think for the most part, I think that all of esports is in an okay spot as long as one of us is doing pretty well. Although Riot's taken a lot of like anti-other game measures recently that have been highly publicized. So. I mean, there's a bit to talk about in regards to that. But
they reversed that, man. They reversed that.
Okay, so you're saying it's grown, okay. Yeah. Here's the person it's great for in League of Legends. The person who's a player, right, who makes more salary, who's like a bad player. He makes way more salary. They have a more stable career. That's great. But why the fuck do I care about that? I only care about what I'm watching on my monitor. And the games are worse. Like, who would I rather watch, right? Okay, I'll give you an example. So CLG is still a really popular team in North America, but they're not close to good enough to being able to qualify for Worlds, okay? So you can never see their players against international competition at the World Championship. Well, if it was in the old system in 2012, even if they weren't going to win the tournament, okay, they could go to a tournament where it would be a Korean team or there would be a European team, and you'd at least get to see them play there. Like, think of all the StarCraft 2 tournaments that would suck if it was only an NA league that you never ever got to see those NA players except the top 3 play against the Koreans. Wouldn't that suck if that was like your main entertainment each week, only watching fucking Desro play against State for like the 8th time this season in the league? Instead of ever getting to watch like Gear play against.
I mean, that sounds really black and white though. Like, I mean, there are arguments on both sides. Like, would it suck? Like, let's say I was a really big Desro fan or a really big Destiny fan or a really big Muslim fan, and I wanted to see those guys play games against people. I don't know how much entertainment they would be watching your favorite NA players play against top Korean teams, and then watch them get raped over and over and over and over and over again. Like, I don't know if there'd be very much entertainment value. I don't know. I don't know if the gap between CLG and the top Korean teams is quite as big as it is between the StarCraft foreigners and the top Korean players. I know that when I left, the gap wasn't as big as it is in StarCraft 2. But I know, like, for StarCraft 2, at this point, I think most people would rather see foreigners playing foreigners than any non-top tier foreigner playing versus a Korean. When I say top tier, I mean like pretty much only Scarlet and Aniwa. Just because the skill discrepancies become so high that there's just not very much entertainment that can be extracted from those matches if it's just a stomp over and over and over again.
That's the key thing about League of Legends, okay? There was never any actual danger of League of Legends going like StarCraft 2, where all the Koreans would come over, because here's the key thing. In Korea, they have leagues, just like, in Kesper in Brood War, Part of the reason
Yeah.
why those players would have never gone to foreign tournaments if it was like that is because they have the Pro League every week. And so that's why certain people would have never flown over anyway. Well, what happened is in League of Legends, they have the OGN tournament like almost every week of the year. They have something like that, okay? So the absolute best teams, maybe if they had a break, they'd go to a huge tournament in the West, but they wouldn't go to the medium-sized tournaments anyway. So you'd already get to see all your favorites from the West. Like, if you look at the old MLGs for League of Legends, okay, it was nearly all Americans anyway, but then you could have the odd Korean, you could have the odd Chinese team, you could have the odd European team. And if you go to Europe, it was mainly the European team. So basically, you're just getting more from the old system than you are now.
So basically, I don't think that I understand with what you're saying, and I actually agree with you, but I would attack it from a slightly different angle. I think the problem is that with the way the LCS system is set up now, and I don't think I'm missing anything, but for the most part, you can correct me if I'm wrong, LCS is pretty much the only major tournament that exists for League of Legends right now, right? There's not anything else
in the
to
West,
play for.
yeah.
In the West,
So I would say that for a problem, that's probably the problem right there, is that there are no other major tournaments to play in besides LCS. Do I disagree with how LCS is currently set up with the top 3 people playing and maybe not getting to see your favorite foreigner team play against Koreans? I don't know if that's necessarily bad, but I could see how you could see that would be really bad if there are no other tournaments that you can play in, you know?
Richard, let me get your thoughts on this.
I agree with. Look, this is probably fucking rare. It's not what you were hoping for, but I actually agree with what both Destiny and Duncan have said. But equally, I think one of the biggest problems you've got is the way that the meta in the game has shifted. Like, comebacks are nigh on impossible now. And you know, it's like they've tried to remove snowballing from the game because it was a problem last season. And you can see how they've tried to do it in this preseason. But I watched the Battle of Atlantic, and I don't think it's really addressed the problem. You know, you think back to, like, you know, vintage League of Legends tournaments. You think about some of the greatest games. You know, there was an ebb and flow to it, mad comebacks. There was comeback mechanics within there, and Riot have said, "Oh, we've put them in. They're there now." But it doesn't feel like that. I'm watching the games at Battle of Atlantic. It didn't feel like that. I felt they were all, you know, it was just who got into the league kind of first that ran away with the game pretty much, like, every time. And it's become a very dull and sedentary spectator experience for me, speaking as someone who really enjoys the game. It's definitely grown, but it's like, I don't know, it's like the NFL. You know, you can pretty much predict who's going to win a game right from the get-go. Like, and it's become like that. There's not the shocks like you get in something like soccer, where, you know, one random event can really fucking, you know, create these shock results. You don't seem to get them as much anymore, and it's a real fucking shame.
Well, actually, the way Destiny characterized it there is the way that... Actually, I hadn't actually phrased it that way there myself, but it's the same argument I always use for StarCraft 2, which is in StarCraft 2, everyone's doing what I'm doing, actually. They're just looking at the fact WCS exists, and all they're saying is, how do we change WCS to make WCS what we want out of the whole of the tournament calendar, okay? Mm-hmm. But actually, that's not really the way it should be. Like, I always say, the reason why I liked WCS the year before isn't because of all the, like, European and all that stuff. It's because it was just an add-on. So you had the normal tournament calendar, and then WCS was like some free money and some free tournaments as well as that. So it could never be anything negative because it was additional to what already existed. Mm-hmm. But in trying to incorporate everything into WCS in StarCraft 2, that's where you got all the problems. Because then if WCS is all that exists in those big regions, then you have the problems of, do we, like, ban foreigners? How do people who aren't Korean compete? Well, that's the problem in League of Legends, actually, is that I really wouldn't have an issue with the whole league system if I could have the league system, but I also had some tournaments as well. Like, if every 3 months you have a tournament where you can have some Americans meet some Koreans, meet some Chinese people, then I personally wouldn't mind. Like, I don't mind there being flavors, but it's the fact that Riot's essentially making you choose that. Like, you can only have the league. And then if a few people make it out of this league system, which is arbitrary, then you have the big tournament. And then even that has its own problems. And so you get into this whole dilemma of, like, arguing about something that in the first place isn't what anyone has to argue about anyway. You could have tournaments and you can have leagues simultaneous to each other.
The whole reason for doing this, like, big league and this single storyline, is how people always label it, is to create this giant champion at the end of the year. So are you not in favor of doing that?
Because that's complete bullshit. Like, that whole... I've heard this fucking argument 100 times and it's never made sense to me once. The storyline goes like this. Oh, the biggest tournament at the end of the year is way better if, like, those teams haven't met and there's, like, a storyline of them going through tournaments. That's bullshit. Think of any esports tournament you've seen in yourself, right? Okay, so when you saw, like, players in old games in the past play each other, like, 4 or 5 times, I don't know about you, but every time 2 really great rivals played each other, it made the next game even better. It wasn't that I should have waited 3 years, and then eventually they meet, and I'm like, oh god, 3 years, I'm gonna come so hard when this game starts. It's actually better because they've played, because of the context of them playing each other, and you know what the last one was. So actually, the more times teams meet, the better it makes the big championship. And that's why in every other sport you have people meeting over and over and over and over, and then they meet for the big championship.
Okay.
The League of Legends system isn't that. It's that they don't meet at all. Then maybe if they manage to get through all these little like assault courses and get to the very top, then they meet once, and then the one time they meet, you go, right, that decides who's the best for the whole year.
So their execution isn't. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Imagine if you went to the movies and you saw The Matrix, and the only time Neo ever fought Agent Smith was at the very end.
Right.
When he beats him and stops the bullets. But it's not interesting then because you didn't have the context of all their previous fights, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that same drama exists in StarCraft 2 matchups where you're not necessarily interested. Well, to be honest, I don't think there's ever been very much interest in two people that have never played each other before. You're more interested in people that have history with one another, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I even think in terms of the storyline, though, that's the other thing apart of that annoys me. There's this line that they keep using, which is that the narrative is better if you have a build-up through all the regional things into the final thing, right? But let me phrase it this way, okay? If that's true, that's really great, one storyline like that, then how come the storyline ends up just being like one sentence? So I'll give you an example I always give, right? In the first split of LCS, there was a team called Curse, and because of the way the meta was at the time, that fit their star players perfectly. They were dominating LCS NA the whole season along. Yep. Then on the very last week, they dropped off completely. They blew it in the playoffs. They finished 4th overall. So at the end, the storyline for LCS Spring for Curse goes like this. They finished 4th. Whereas really, the storyline should have been like, oh, they were top all this time, they were doing really well. If those had been 4 tournaments instead of the league, and then they'd had a big tournament, then they'd have won 3 of those tournaments, they'd have placed second at the next one, then they'd have dropped off. That's a way better storyline. Like, we won this tournament because we were on top, we won this one, then we came 4th, then we went to the World Championships. Instead, your storyline's actually worse because of the fact it was just one league like that.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of this that we're talking about is just the design of the league, but is having the league a good thing? You know, like making some changes. They can always change.
Think of the example I gave of WCS there. If the league is additional, then it's extra free money. It's its own structure that can provide all this. It's only positives. The reason it's negative is because, I mean, I don't want to go too far into this, but I would suspect that Riot wants to control these Western teams, and they only want them to be seen in a certain context, and they want to decide when you see these teams and in what format and all that. See, that's the element there. It's not that we can't have both. It's that they've decided that you're not going to be allowed both. It's only going to be this one thing, and we own these teams, or we have some say over these teams, and as long as they're in LCS, we'll show you it in this format. Like, they could easily have that and have the tournaments as well, but they don't want to, like, whatever, water down the product, or I don't know what
it's not even about that, right? It's just about control. It's just a fucking exercise in control, the whole thing. You know firsthand how desperately Riot try and control all the perceptions surrounding players, surrounding the game. They don't even use the term esport anymore. So it's why it's so laughable when we talk about Riot's contribution to esports. They want to make such a big contribution to esports. They even want to outlaw the word from all their sort of corporate PR bullshit. They just call it a sport now. And they're so desperate to fucking pander to the mainstream, which is why you see embarrassing shit like that HBO program, which was some of the most cringeworthy shit I've seen in a long time. I mean, they did a hatchet job on Scarra. They just made him look like such a fucking fat loser. It was, I mean, people afterwards were like saying I shouldn't have that opinion. Like I couldn't have watched the whole thing. No, I did. They set it up with the context, and then by the end it was like, hey, nerds are okay, really. And then because some hot chick who was doing the presenting wants to argue that it is a real sport, like it's some victory for us. Like, we should just fuck the mainstream. We're rapidly outgrowing the mainstream. We're ahead of the curve in terms of how we do things in online streaming and broadcasting. They're looking at how we do shit now and want to copy it. So fuck it. And if League of Legends and Riot think the way to go is to cater to the mainstream, they're actually not as far ahead of the curve as they think they are. They're actually thinking very retroactively.
Has the success that League of Legends and LCS and Riot had, I mean, this year, has it been because of that approach, though? Like, all these sponsors that we're seeing, would they have gotten those sponsors if they were...
Whoa, wait a second. Sponsorships? Are you having a laugh? Riot themselves actively try to stop sponsorships of teams in certain ways. Like, they control how you can have sponsorships and what you can sponsor. Remember before, it was the Wild West. But as a result, you can have any sponsors you want. You can do whatever you want. You can go to whatever events you want. The team even has some power over tournaments, because in theory, you could be like, we're not going to come to MLGs if you don't set it up like this. We'll go to some other tournament. Now those teams have none of that power. Like, here's the thing. The reason I keep phrasing it like that if it was a different way with more options, it would only be a positive. Because people are going to think when I'm criticizing it that I'm saying it's all bad, but it's not. It's what happens is they're setting up a false dichotomy where they're telling you either have to have the good things, which we're offering you here, and all this bad stuff, because that all has to be the way it is, or nothing. And it's like, well, no, I could have all the good things, and you could just like chill the fuck out a bit and maybe let a couple of other things come in. And they're like, no, it has to be everything or nothing. So who's being unreasonable there? It's not me. It's the people who are making this two choices when there's a fucking spectrum of what you can do. Or, I mean, I'm not going to give examples from other games, but every other game I can think of at least has more options open. Like, people complain about WCS. You can still go to a DreamHack and earn WCS points. There's nothing like that in League of Legends because they've decided that this is esports, this is League of Legends esports, and we control that sector there. No one else is allowed in unless we say. And as a result, IEM, etc., are just like lapdogs. Like, can we please have a tournament? And they're like, well, maybe if you're very good, we'll let a couple of the teams that got knocked out go. But you better promote our... Yeah.
I mean,
they think they run it, but we know, don't we, girls? Yeah.
I told you about it as well, didn't I, Dunk? Like, this is how much they care about esports, right? I don't know if you noticed, but there was a broadcast where they talked about ninjas in pajamas, who obviously used to have a LoL team and maybe still do because of all the crazy backhanded bullshit that can go on, because an LCS spot's so valuable. There's a lot of real dodgy shit that goes on with it, but that's a separate thing. But anyway, they talked about their Counter-Strike history, which of course is very prestigious. You know, one of the first ever sort of breakout teams, one of the most successful back in 2004, I think it was. Duncan, maybe it was 2001. How far back do I need to go?
2001.
Sorry, I get confused because I'm old and drunk. But anyway... So yeah, they talk just a little bit about it. Like, and of course, Ninjas in Pajamas have this great Counter-Strike history. Some of the great people. They may even have mentioned Heaton. And Riot were like, yeah, can we keep that out of our broadcasts? Because when you talk about other esports, it makes it look like, you know, we're not the fucking big boys. Like, the League of Legends viewers might go and be like, oh, you know, fuck LOL, I want to watch Counter-Strike, so don't mention it. So it's like, if that's the kind of shit they're not interested in esports collectively as a whole. Initially as well, the contracts they put down for the organizations, and this is true, I have this on authority from a few of them, because they had the old vice president guy from CGS who was there. One of the things he wanted to bring in was that if you had an organization within LCS, Riot owned the IP to that brand. In the same way that CGS bought Complexity. And people like that, they wanted to do that in 3D. You know, they wanted to do that with, you know, even smaller teams like Copenhagen Wolves and guys like that. And that's just absurd. Like, an organization is something, it's not a franchise. An organization exists outside of the LCS remit, but Riot were just so control obsessed that that's what they wanted to do. So again, you know, I think I love League of Legends. Right, I love the game, and I think LCS is one of the best broadcasting experiences I've had as a spectator since following esports over the last 10 years. But the idea that Riot are like some altruistic people, they just constantly mythologize about their contribution to esports, like the visa thing. Hey guys, we got visas for esports people. No, that happened before you. It happened in 2007. When Zet went over to Complexity, he got an esports visa. Jason Lake didn't come out and say, hey guys, I'm esports savior. He didn't feel the need to do it, and Riot do that shit all the time, and it's fucking nauseating, to be honest. Like, so.
That's actually the biggest problem I have, actually.
And he never was.
Last point in League of Legends, man. We were still like
there's so much about League of Legends that is good, and the potential for the game is fucking amazing. Like, they could really... What's funny is, with the money Riot is spending, they could actually make Korea look like shit. Because at the moment, Korea's the best with OGN, etc. It looks really good. They could make that look trash with how much they're spending and the amount of resources and teams and everything they've got. But the reason they don't scratch the surface is because they keep this stupid dual scenario going, where on one hand they want to do the sort of mildly scumbaggy things that companies do anyway, but while telling you that they're not doing that and that they're the most altruistic people who are only doing things for the benefit of everyone. And it's like, that's what I don't like. Like, we could get into arguments totally separately about should they do this or should they do that. That's like a totally different issue. It's the fact that they claim not to be doing it, yet they do it. Like, I just hate people who are fake like that. Like, you're telling me that this is fucking like Swiss chocolate, but it's obviously horse shit. And then you're like, oh, how rude! You're not going to eat it all up. Like, yeah, because it's fucking horse shit, mate. But everyone else is just like, no, you can't say that. Don't say that. Riot might get upset, man. It's like the best. I'll give you a quick example, actually. So recently there was a story on my site.
All right, last one. All right,
Chill out, bro.
last one.
So there was a story on our site recently about these contracts, and a leak had happened, and they'd found out that there was this streaming issue with it. I'm not going to get into all that, right? But basically, the story gets leaked, and apparently it maybe wasn't 100% behind the scenes at Riot or something. And so anyway, Riot sees the backlash is really bad to this. So they come out with a statement like, we were thinking of doing that, guys. We're not going to do it, though. We would never actually do that. Like, maybe it was a mistake from some of us. We weren't thinking right. But, we care about esports, and so we're going to fix it. And the reason I hate the way they do it like that is because it's like they're purposely trying to throw under the bus anyone who reports stuff like that. Because then they want to treat it like, oh, see, you made a whole big thing about this, and this was never going to even be done, and we were always going to change it. But the only reason you changed it is because it was brought out and put publicly like that before it was 100% in place. That's like the most scumbag move ever, because that's like you're lying to the public and you're trying to create a villain out of someone who actually just made you make your organization better. Like, if you're going to continue doing that, then how the fuck can you consider yourself like an altruistic person?
Okay, well, let's round out League of Legends.
So
that was supposed to be the good, guys. That was supposed to be the good. That didn't sound like the good to me.
We didn't get the memo. Sorry, Chris. We'll
God.
we'll make it good for the next one.
All right, for you. So the next one's for you, Richard. Dota 2.
Okay,
Dota 2, the good.
Oh, he's done it.
Right,
he's only thrown me under the bus. Right, fuck that. I'm gonna get some whiskey. Hang on.
Whiskey.
Okay. I've got a bottle here. If we're gonna talk Dota 2, I'm gonna need a fucking stiff drink because this is it.
I'll see if Steven has anything to say about Dota 2 first. Steven, you have any comments on Dota 2?
Actually, I'll give you something good to go into this topic. I'll set the two topics up. Okay. The League of Legends is that the community is actually fucking amazing. Like, even the people who say negative things in the community, there are so many people just in general that actually they do get drowned out by all the like positive comments, all the people who actually want the game to be better and all that sort of thing. In Dota 2, it's like the same scenario, but you don't have enough of those good people, so you take them away and there's just this shit washed all over. And so the League of Legends community is amazing. The Dota community is absolute dog shit. Like, one of the worst I've ever seen of any game in history. Like, I've seen a lot of games where I thought, like, this game's like full of people, just Russians trying to speak English. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Dota 2 is like that, but they're totally eloquent, so they're actually cretins. It's like they're being absolutely eloquent about how little they know about life and how ignorant their opinions are. That's like Dota 2, so let's go.
Steven, what do you think?
I don't know shit about Dota 2. I can't comment on the Dota 2 community at all, so...
Oh boy, here comes Richard. Oh, man.
Well,
I don't have that much experience with the Dota 2 community, so I can't even comment that much on it.
The Dota 2 community just sum itself up with fucking the Diatide fiasco? Like, isn't that just the self-entitled bullshit in a nutshell of the Dota 2 community? Like, I just don't get why anyone can't just play their fucking game. Like, why are you gonna ram it down everyone's throats? Tell everyone else their game.
Before we continue this community bashing, let's talk about just the structure of the esports right now, because you guys were bashing just on riots and leagues, LCS and just the leagues run. What do you think about what's happening in Dota 2 right now?
You know what? Like, the international is it's very divisive for me. Like, I don't necessarily think having one super huge life-changing tournament is necessarily the way to structure esports, because it becomes such a focal point. It literally is all about that, which makes for huge drama within that context. But I think over the course of a season, everything else kind of pales in comparison. I watched the international. I thought the one previous, I thought the initial one was actually a lot better. I don't know what it was, but I said it at the time, the best thing about it in terms of just the production was that chick from Fox. That was good. I mean,
she was great.
People went a bit overboard with it, but she did bring a new sort of benchmark to hosting, if you like, because we're just used to I don't know, like even guys like Carmack can be a host. It's like, come on, we don't have a super high standard in esports. I'm just joking, Michael. I love you. But this chick was professionally trained. She worked on network television, and you could see there, she did something that I couldn't do, or Duncan couldn't do. Our little verbal tics, the the ums, the you what, mate, all of that, right? Like, we couldn't iron that out. It's just how we talk. It's our dialect. But she was pitch perfect, note perfect, interview super professional. So that was really good. And then the other good thing about it was Too Good, who day one and day two, that panel was like it was as hilarious as a children's morgue. It was so bad. I felt so sorry for Too Good, but he managed to like string it out, like, and make it funny and bring people out their shells. And towards the end, that he really reaped the benefits of it. But Too Good was just a class act. He proves why he's worth so much money, you know, in the esports sort of industry, and he's done a good thing hitching his wagon to Dota 2. So there was some stuff to like, but I was a little bit underwhelmed overall with the production value, because, you know, you hear from neutrals that talk about it like it's the Super Bowl at esports, and I didn't really get that. I didn't think it had the sort of pageantry and the spectacle, but it was better than the League World Finals, which frankly had some really embarrassing bits. So,
well, it's funny that you thought it was better the previous season, because I thought the games were better this year. So, I mean, in particular the finals. I thought the finals were absolutely amazing. I mean,
the final was incredible. I mean, like, you know, again, I don't even particularly like the game, but the final was, you know, it just any esports enthusiast would be able to watch that final and appreciate the drama, which is almost like a byproduct of the high stakes of the money. It is, you know, life-changing amounts of money. But yeah, I mean, I just felt overall it lacked that bit. It's like, do you know what it was? It wasn't that it got any worse. It just didn't get that much better, like you felt it should have done. Because, you know, it should have been all the things that people say it is, and it wasn't. It was a little bit underwhelming, a little bit overhyped, if you like. But, you know, it was still probably, if not the esports event of the year. It was definitely up there. It's, you know, unarguably top 3. But, you know, even for someone who doesn't like Dota, it was an enjoyable watch, and I think it probably sucked a lot of neutrals in to play a bit more Dota, you know.
All right, James went in after smoke here in this conversation. We did it. We tempted
Jesus
him.
Christ.
Thorin.
What do you got, like 20 minutes in now? We're already having people calling in. Yeah, good shit. Yeah.
Thorin, what do you think? What do you think of Dota 2?
We need Too Good to bail us out already. Is that?
No.
I mean, it's a good job. Actually, the conversation we had about LoL sets this up perfectly, because the strange thing is, like I kind of introed there, the biggest put off to me for Dota 2 is the community. Like, they just seem overwhelmingly negative to the extent, like, it just makes me think, like, oh, I'm just going to ignore the community completely. Whereas the actual game seems like right up my alley. Like, if you were to put the two games to me before I got involved with working with either, okay, and show me the structure of 2013 in both games, Dota 2 is basically exactly what I was complaining about, what I wanted in League of Legends there. Okay, sure, it has this international, and I actually have big problems with that sort of a structure as well. Like, I hate the idea that the person who wins that tournament gets, like, the $1 million, and meanwhile you could win, like, 17 other events and you'd have, like, 300 grand or something. That's just a bit stupid, because it's not really, it's not a sporting element. You're not rewarding the people who are actually the best. But ignoring that, the reason why it's not a big deal in Dota 2 is because you have the international, but then even though other tournaments seed into the international, there's still other tournaments. And so, for example, like, I don't watch lots of Dota 2 because I don't know that much about the game, but I just watch the big matchups. Like, every time Na'Vi and Alliance get into the playoffs, I'll watch some of those games, especially every time they play each other. And so, in that sense, it's been great, because there's all these LAN tournaments all throughout the year, and you get the chance to potentially see them, like I was saying before, play like 7-8 times in a year, maybe even more going forwards if they actually all start attending all the offline events. So that aspect is ideal for me. Like, I love the structure of the scene, especially the fact that it's not that Valve designed it that way and that there's some super geniuses like, oh, we're gonna have this open circuit. Really, I think they probably did that to save money. Like, they were like, oh yeah, we want to be like free and let the community decide. No, I think really they just didn't want to pay like what LCS did. But that's good, because actually what made esports great in the past was the grassroots element of people making their own tournaments that have their own flavor, and I'm going to hold mine in this particular way with this structure, and you hold yours in a totally different one, and then the players decide which they attend and which ones they want to actually play in. And so I actually love that system, and I wish we could have that in every game, because for me that's the ideal system, like a circuit that's open, but in still it has like an overall system that seeds into the championship, but not like overtly. Like, it's not like you only played this Star Series to somehow go over to this tournament here, or you only played this DreamHack to hope that you get an invite to this. It's like both at the same time. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like WCS was trying to accomplish that in StarCraft 2 too, but it hasn't really. I think they haven't really gotten that same effect that I think you're talking about. But
yeah, that's sort of between the two, I think.
Yeah, so because the model's so good, in your opinion, do you think that Dota 2 is going to have like a giant growth next year, and maybe
I don't
catch up
think
to
esports even works like that. Like, I've never understood this whole thing about like that whole thing of like, if you build it, it will come. That worked in like a shit baseball movie with some like arsehole out of Waterworld. Like, that has nothing to do with reality. Like, in reality, if you put $1 million for for a shit game like Painkiller, there's still 17 people playing it for the $1 million. Suddenly there isn't like 200,000 people playing it. Like I think it works the other way around. As a game's getting big, that's when you decide to put money in and you create tournaments around it, because that's what the market dictates, is that you create more to exploit the market. Essentially, it's not the other way around, that you make the tournament system, and if it's really awesome, suddenly millions of people will watch. That's the thing about the League of Legends thing that's a bit silly, into my opinion. I bet if you get the metrics out, I don't know what they are, of how many people watched and how many hours they watched LCS, I'll bet all the numbers are going up and up and up and up and up. But that isn't necessarily because LCS is the best shit ever, best thing since sliced bread. It's probably because I think the game was getting bigger and bigger and bigger anyway, and as a result,
nice
tournaments is like that affect the size of the
cut
game.
off there for a second. All right, guys.
Did
yeah,
you just mute him there, Chris?
You got cut off for like
you just you know what?
10
Alright,
seconds there.
Too Good's coming.
No, you got cut off for like 10 seconds. Your mic cut off or something for 10 seconds. So that last statement we didn't quite.
Is this where
catch.
Too Good comes on the show and stays on for the whole rest of the show? Yeah.
Well, honestly, like I was trying to get him on the show.
This shit. You just let anyone they want just call in if they're like famous.
No, that's not true. Like you can
You
ask Steven. I was trying to get James the entire time.
Talking about Dota 2, magically he appears out of nowhere like fucking Candyman, and he's just like, "Hello guys,
that's
I'm
how
here now."
That's how it works with James, man. But
And
we'll
now
take a
he's
quick
just on the
break.
show. Yeah.
We'll get him on. We'll be right
I
back,
like
guys.
the guy, but come on, what's going on here, Chan Man?
He always does this though. You always say, James, you want to show? He goes, no, I can't be asked.